What's up, my children?
Okay, James. Do we get right into this, or what do you think?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Because you know it's going to be all about Michael, but I'd rather hear some about James first.
Alrighty then.
So, where did everything come from for you? Like, you started getting into stunts and everything as well, right?
Well, I in fourth grade I knew I was going to make movies for a living. So, and it wasn't a dream, it wasn't a wish. I didn't have posters on the wall. I just knew it. You know, I knew my mom and dad loved me. I knew God loved me. I knew I was going to college, and I knew I was going to be a movie star. I knew I was going to make movies. I knew I was going to write. I knew I was going to produce. In fifth grade, I started making my own films with my dad's camera. I have 6 younger brothers, and so he had a 1950s era Kodak tri-lens 8mm camera that he shot all the football games, all the basketball games, all the martial arts tournaments. All the things we did as kids. And so I picked that camera up in fifth grade, started making my own films. I stayed in college, undergrad, longer than I needed to because back then, first of all, college was super cheap. And secondly, I wanted to study things I thought pertained to making films, things like psychology and anthropology and you know, lots and lots of literature and of course media arts, you know, making films, recording music, my own and other people's. I intended to go out and be an actor, and my, you know, in my young mind reasoning that, you know, I stayed in college longer, so I didn't go out until I was 25. My brother Bill and I and another buddy rode motorcycles all over the United States, ended up in California. I went to work as a tour guide. I thought I'd be a star by 27, telling the studios what I wanted to do by 29, and you know, but that's not the way stuff works, you know. But that innocence really helps because, you know, expectations are a part of manifestation, right? So, so I did a play called Requiem for Heavyweight. It's a Rod Serling play. Ran for 9 weeks in Long Beach, one night on Broadway, opened and closed. I met in that production a former instructor from the Royal Academy of the Dramatic Arts. He became my private coach. So he was the one who got me an audition at Universal Studios for the live show, the Adventures of Conan. So in that show, I was a double swordsman, and I've done martial arts for years, so that was kind of a no-brainer, picking up some swords and fighting. Thousands of stitches in that show, broken bones, concussions. It was so much fun. It was crazy. If I'd grown up in Canada, I guarantee I would have played hockey. I promise you. And I'd be missing teeth. I guarantee it. And then in that show, they wanted me to switch characters, fight with a 7-foot broadsword, and do a 20-foot high fall into a flaming pit. But I was afraid of heights because as a kid, doing the wild stuff that kids do, I jumped off a super slide thinking I could get to the other one, and I didn't make it, and, you know, knocked myself unconscious. And so I had this little, you know, fear of heights. But my buddy Alex Daniels, who I went to college with, who is now the president of the Stuntmen's Association, was like, no, dude, you're not turning this money down. So he took me to Bob Yerkes's circus training ground. He trains Circus of the Stars, circus performers. And he taught me how to do high falls, starting at 10 feet. We worked on the trapeze. Within an hour, he had me at 70 feet, you know, doing high falls. And it's so much. So I did about 3,000 high falls in that show, about 7,000 sword fights. I can't even remember how many stitches. And so that's what kind of opened up to the actor stuntman thing. And the actor stuntman thing, like back then, in the industry, they saw you as neither fish nor fowl. You had to be an actor or you had to be a stuntman, and they couldn't wrap their minds around somebody who could do both. So most of the really good actors I knew stopped acting, like Alex, and just went on and did only stunts. John Casino was Kurt Russell's double. Brilliant actor, really good-looking guy. He could have been a tremendously successful actor. But I chose to keep doing both because I needed to learn the things I needed to learn to eventually make my own films. So I didn't care that I was shorting myself as an actor or a stuntman. What I cared about was what I was going to learn. So, long way to get to the answer, but there you have it.
Awesome. So you mentioned martial arts. We talked a little bit about this. What arts did you take, and are you still practicing?
So I will not call myself a martial artist because an artist, calling oneself an artist connotes that you're presently practicing, and I am not. I haven't been on a mat or in a ring for well over 10 years, probably close to 15 years. But I started in 7th grade. I was a third from the smallest kid in 7th grade and 8th grade. I was just getting my ass kicked, and when someone picked a fight with me, I went out to the parking lot, and it was the guy who picked a fight and 8 of his friends, and I had nobody behind me, and I was like, well, I got really tired of that shit. So I was looking for Kwai Chang Caine. I was looking for Kung Fu. I was looking for a spiritual master. What I found was a guy at the YMCA who was a boxer in the '56 Olympics. So he put together judo, savate, jiu-jitsu, and boxing. And so he was essentially one of the first mixed martial artists. Lost his left eye in the Olympics. And I have a particular affinity for boxing, probably because of him. But it was a really great training ground. And after I mixed it up with a couple of bullies, word got around that I was not a patsy, and they pretty much started leaving me alone. I mean, bullies like to hurt people. They don't like a fair fight. They don't even like an unfair fight. They just want to hurt people. And we see this in the corporate world. We see this in the political world. We see this all around us. You know what I mean? So I remember when I was, my dad was airborne in Korea. He was a stock car racer. He was he was a big, strong man, but a very kind and compassionate man. And so his deal was, for me and my 6 brothers, we weren't allowed to start fights. We weren't allowed to be that bully. But once someone started a fight, then we were expected to step up, and he had our back the whole way. So when police came knocking on the door, and saying, your son just beat up so-and-so, well, my dad was like, okay, these guys have been picking on my son for years. It looks like they got with but it's a different world. Because back then, the cops could have that conversation with a parent, and it would just go away. Now it's so litigious, and people have liability issues, and you got lots and lots of snowflakes running around, but at the end of the day, though, so I studied that, and then when I went to college, I boxed a little bit. It was for college was really about learning and growing. There was a guy named Abby Bray, who was a fraternity brother of mine, and he wanted to start fighting. So I coached him. I taught him how to fight. And then when we went down to the youth center and started working out, Chris Atopoulos, who was one of the lead trainers in the '76 Olympic team, was there, and he was incredibly insightful. I mean, that was the team that produced Sugar Ray, the Spinks brothers, Howard. Like, these are some really great fighters. And Chris was just a wealth of knowledge, and Abby ended up being picked up by Joe Frazier, and but we were sparring partners because I weighed 180 and he weighed 280, and but he was a little bit bigger, taller than me, a little bit longer reach. But I was so fast, so I could get him used to, to speed, and he got me used to big punches, and they were big. And then when I went to Los Angeles, then I started, in the stunt world, I can't even tell you how many of my friends are national and world champion fighters. So those are the guys that I would train with. And then after that, I moved to a combination of Kali and Aikido. And I think Kali, I believe Kali to be one of the most effective arts. Aikido being standing up grappling. So it is jiu-jitsu in standing. And the important thing about that is Aikido informed the way I move as Michael Myers. So when in Halloween Kills, when they were looking for somebody to play the flashbacks, they looked at over 200 people and couldn't find anybody to move the way I move. Well, Aaron Armstrong, who was the stunt coordinator on Halloween Kills, of the many arts he's practiced, he's primarily a kung fu guy, but of the many arts he practiced, he also did about a decade of Aikido. And in Aikido, your feet never leave the ground. It's very flowing, very circular. You use your hara 2 inches below your belly button. That's sort of like a gyroscope, and that keeps you very fluid. And realistically, Aikido, if it's the only art, is not very effective. But if you have other art skills, Aikido is devastating because most fighters don't understand the way an Aikidoist moves. You just have to have finishing techniques. And Aikido doesn't, they have lockout techniques, the jiu-jitsu and stuff, but the important thing for me is that informed the way I move is the shape. And then I moved into some inner arts like Xingyi, Bagua, Tai Chi, Qigong, and that's just all energy. But that also informed my work as the shape because what I do when I'm acting, I'm not a cerebral actor. I don't make notes. What I do is it's all experiential, it's all spiritual for me. So I breathe the character in, I let the character control my body, and then when I'm done, I breathe the character out. But I also, every day and with every setup, I protect myself with a blue ring of protection from Archangel Michael. So I know that I'm spiritually protected from the darkest. And David Gordon Green, the director, said in 2018, he told me he'd only worked with one other actor who could go as deep and dark as I went, and that poor gentleman ended up in a psych ward for 2 months. He had a psychotic break. But I'm immune from that because I have techniques, I have protection, I'm consciously entering into that space, allowing it to own me, but I consciously choose to remove it then. So it doesn't, so I don't go to bed at night, with that kind of energy. So there's and for me, I wish for everybody that we had, I wish we had more martial arts training, because it really does create a more peaceful society. It creates self-confidence. I personally look at our bodies. I'm 66 years old and I'm still doing my own stunts. But part of that reason is I train my body every day, and I train as hard as I did as a college athlete. I train as hard as I did in my 20s and 30s. I've never changed. I changed the way I train. But I kind of feel like this vehicle that we've been blessed with, however our genetics are, however strong we are, whatever our weaknesses are, our strengths, I believe it's incumbent upon us to honor our physicality and the gifts we've been given by diet and exercise and cutting loose, and so all these things come together and gave me the little tools in my toolbox to be able to play this character.
Awesome. So before we get to the Michael stuff, where's James now?
Sitting right next to you, my brother.
The only place you want to be, right?
The only place I want to be. Yeah. No, I'm producing. I wrote, am producing, second directing and acting in a movie that's a coming-of-age story of a high school soccer player. I've just been over in Germany dealing with the financial people and meeting the people at Eintracht Frankfurt. It's a Bundesliga soccer match, and if any of you have ever seen a European or a British soccer match, oh my God, those people are nuts. They're so freaking nuts. They have plexiglass walls around the opposing team, like the hardcore fans, and then the hardcore fans, they let everybody else leave the stadium. Then they have the opposing team leave the stadium, and once they've left the grounds, then they let their fans leave, because otherwise it's going to be bedlam. There's going to be blood and broken bones everywhere, man. Those guys are stabbings, and those guys are bad to the bone, man. So, and then after that, I'm going to do a horror film with sort of I'll play sort of an action-oriented anti-hero. So in keeping with sort of the character type that I played with Michael Myers. I'm super, super busy. I don't have, we're traveling so much that between work and between doing conventions, and I don't get much time at home.
Hopefully you get a little bit soon. So, taking on this shape that you took on, how did you prepare for that, and what were some of your concerns?
I had no concerns. When I get hired to do something, but keep in mind I've been doing this forever. You know what I mean? One of the things I learned from my father, who's Special Forces, my brothers and I all share this thing. Like the more challenging the situation, generally speaking, the more calm we become. So when I knew I was going down to be put on tape, I'd moved out to Columbia, South Carolina, focused completely on writing and producing. And my thing was, I'm not working in front of a camera unless someone calls me and asks me. I'm not going to run around and audition. I'm not going to, I let my agent go. I have attorneys, that's good enough. And so I got a call from the stunt coordinator from the Rob Zombie films, and he said, hey, we're doing another Halloween. I was aware of it. I knew they were shooting in South Carolina. And I was like, yeah, cool, man, you're going to have a great time. And he goes, yeah, well, I read the script, and I called Malika Akkad and David Gordon Green, and I said, the script is different than any of the other Halloween scripts. You need somebody who has really deep acting chops, who's also a really good stuntman to play Michael Myers. And David said, well, he's got to be 6'3", 200 pounds, and he's got to be in his 60s. Who do you know? And, Ron and I knew each other. I've known him for 30 years, but it was my friends Christopher and Jennifer Nielsen who reminded him of me. So that's when they called me down to be put on tape. So before I went down on tape, to be put on tape, I watched the 78 one time. Because back in the 80s, there's a great old character actor named Ted Knight. and he gave me an incredible gift, like best gift. I studied with Stella Adler, who was Marlon Brando's coach. I had Ron Ray from the Royal Academy. I had, Lance Lindsay, I had Alan Vint. There were like these really amazing coaches I had who beat me up, man. They put me in the corner and just beat the shit out of me. But this gift he gave me, he said, if you want to be a good actor, learn to emulate the guy walking down the street, the bartender, your mother. But don't look at the way they move their hands, or don't try to do their voice. Reach inside their soul, and if you can reach inside their soul and grab their essence, you will naturally move the way they move. They will naturally speak the way they speak. And so I started practicing that, and it's a very spiritual technique. So I watched the '78 Halloween one time, and there's a scene where Nick Castle's walking camera left to camera right in the backyard, and I went, I got it. I never thought about the character. I made no notes. I never looked in the mirror. I never practiced. And I went down and I moved on camera. We talked about the psychology of killing. We talked about, hypotheticals and, the medical effect on, but all these different things. And then, so I get out of the, being put on tape, get out the parking lot, get my pickup truck, because you live in South Carolina, you gotta have a pickup truck. And I wasn't even out of the parking lot, and Blumhouse called me from Los Angeles and said, "Hey, are you available?" I was like, "Yeah." It's usually the kiss of death. When you put on availability for a movie or a commercial, usually it's like, you're not going to get it. Like something else is going to happen. It's just like, but 2 miles later, they called me back and said, "David Gordon Green wants to meet you. Can you come back?" And that's when I went back, and they just stopped everything. They knew they had the guy, and that was it.
Amazing. I could have swore I was watching something where you were doing an interview and you were talking about a serial killer that you interviewed for another one.
Yeah. My first movie was an Academy level picture. I don't know why we didn't win multiple Academy Awards, called Freeway Maniac. It sucked. It was horrible. But the writer-director, and myself are still very friends. He makes these small Western films out in Arizona, and we laugh about it now. And none of us knew what we were doing. We had no idea how to make a movie. We just went out and did it. And there's no freeway in it. It was a Canon film. And so during that time, I kill a truck driver is one of the people I kill. But during that time, there were freeway killings going on in Los Angeles, and so Menachem Golan was like, "Freeway maniac, freeway maniac." There's no freeway in him. Menachem, who cares? Who's gonna know? He was. But those guys are so batshit crazy. They're really, really great. And so to prepare, Paul and I went and spent a weekend. The director, Paul, and I spent a weekend in a lockdown ward with paranoid schizophrenics who had committed murder. Now, keep in mind, these guys had committed murder 20, 25 years prior. They're all doing the Thorazine shuffle. You know what I mean? So no one's moving fast. But there's definitely a pecking order there, just like prison. And so I had a psychiatrist and an orderly. The orderly was with me 24/7, and they would explain to me, how these guys are going to try to take advantage, and and how I could create dominance on the ward without having to hurt anybody. And so that was a really wonderful learning experience. And so yeah, it was, and I carried that with me. That's one of the things. It's kind of odd that in that movie I played a psychopathic killer who escapes from a mental institution, is pursuing a woman, and leaves a trail of bodies behind. So how prescient was that? That my very first movie, and then all of a sudden here I am. Like 40 some odd years later. It's crazy.
Yeah. So did you use any of that for your Michael scenes?
Oh, absolutely. Well, but the thing is again, acting to me is a very spiritual experience. So I don't think about it. I already know. I mean, the tools in my toolbox are so well worn. I've done a lot of shamanic work. So I went down to South America and did ayahuasca with in the jungles of Peru. But I did 3 weeks of cleansing in the the Andes with other shaman to prepare myself. I've done shamanic work with African shaman, ibogaine, which is not for the faint of heart at all. I mean, and I've done North American First Nations rituals, and those prepared me for going into a really deep, dark space and knowing that I'm protected. I've volunteered for 15 years for family constellation therapy to help people, victims of trauma, primarily women who've been raped, but certainly men who've been traumatized by war. And in that process, you embody a lot of information in what's called well, it's a morphogenetic field. And so you're open to all sources of information. And then all the acting training and all this, and all my own psychological work as a man, trying to find myself, find my voice, find out who I am as a human being. So all these things we add to, the martial arts, and then my real life experiences. I had guns to my head. I've been in squirrely situations that somehow I managed to get out of. And so all these things add up, and the beauty of being older, being an older man. I'm 66 right now, and I'm grateful to be here. I wouldn't go back to 40 or 30 or 20. I'm really grateful to be here because the body of knowledge that is stored in my DNA allows me to do these things and to experience them fully and to do them with confidence. So, I don't know, I did play a character like this as a young man. I think the difference between that character and this character are night and day.
So, on the Banff trip, we had a nice little rest stop, and I came out and said, I never look at rest stops the same again. And I want to know, what is your favorite kill in the franchise?
That's really tough because in the whole franchise, that's easy. The Bob kill. Bob kill, easily, 100%. Nothing compares to it. For me, I had so many fun kills, but I think the Cameron kill for me, because that's just a nasty little touch at the end, snapping that little fucker's neck.
I know.
I was praying for it.
Yeah, he deserved it, man. I was taking care of my girl, you know what I mean? And, but for me, the favorite scene in my three movies is the finale with Jamie. She and I both agree that that's the most powerful thing we each individually have ever done in a movie. And that's saying a lot for her, especially because she's had a storied career. At one point when we were shooting that scene, we were bruised from our shoulders all the way down to our ankles, both of us, and her stunt double. But she did all the fighting. The stunt double would. So what a good stunt double does is, I do my own stunts, but I have a stunt double. Or I had a stunt double on the last one. All he did was do all the fight scenes to prepare, and he did the same thing for me in Halloween Kills, actually, as the coordinator, to prepare all the fight scenes. Then I show up on the day, they show me the fight scene, and then I do it. I tweak it to my body. But Jamie did all her own stuff, and at one point, though, they're putting makeup on me, and special effects makeup. It took an hour. I'm laying on the table, so she stood next to me. I had my hand laying on the table like this. She held my hand for an hour. She just closed her eyes and stood there, and we just stood there together and just enjoyed this, this nonverbal spiritual communication between us. So that, hands down, is the best thing I've ever done. It's so much fun.
That's amazing. And I love the fact that you use the whole spirituality and the energy, because I think it does take a lot of energy to connect to that character and to create that kind of atmosphere on stage with your co-workers.
Well, the ancient Greeks, which we would consider the birth of the whole concept of theater and acting, and they wore masks, and they believed they were channeling spirits. They weren't pretending. And I can promise you guys, when we do what we do, we're not pretending. I've had more than a few people come up, well, I could be a good actor, I'm a good liar. And no, you're a shitty actor, because it's not about lying. Jimmy Cagney said to be a good actor, you need to stand on 2 feet and tell the truth. So everything we're experiencing in those movies is real. It's real inside of us. Our bodies are being affected physiologically, hormonally, as if what we're doing is real. So the trauma that victims are feeling is real to them. What I'm feeling when I'm killing is real to me, So there's and for me, there's no thought process. I have enough of me sitting up here in a little control booth to make sure I don't hurt somebody, to make sure I don't get hurt, or to the best of our ability, not get hurt, to stay within the parameters of, I'll know if we're on a 70 millimeter lens or a 100 millimeter lens or a 50 or a 35. I know then what the frame is. I know, I know where And like for instance, in the first one, you know, when I'm killing Dad with the chimes, all right. And here's the difference between a person who has stunt experience and a person who doesn't. No stunt experience, no fight experience, and it looks like I'm just fighting with this guy, right? I am, because the son of a bitch kept leaving frame, and so I know the frame, so I'm just fighting to keep the sides in, man. Like, dude, stay in, man. Like, you know, but also staying in character, you know. So there's that part of us when you're acting that, you know, enough of us is there to handle the technical realities, but the rest of it is not us.
Very nice. I love hearing about that.
You guys want us to open this up? I have lots of questions, but I don't want to take questions from you guys. So let's take some questions from you guys.
Anybody have one? You want the mic?
I don't think I need the mic.
Okay.
Is there a kill that you guys talked about but didn't quite make it into production that you wish?
So he's asking if there's a kill that we talked about that didn't make it into production. No, but there are scenes we shot that didn't make it to most notably was the ending for 2018, which we took a week to shoot, and we ended up scrapping it. And it didn't make it to Blu-ray because there's some moments in it that were so profound and special that David and I, for instance, considered one of the most meaningful things we've ever done on film. And so David, you know, called me and said, "Hey man, what do you think of this?" I mean, he's like, "My inclination is to keep this for us. You know, maybe 10 or 20 years we'll show somebody, but so that particular thing, and it's the very ending of that part, the fight and kill stuff with Jamie. Prior to that, although we didn't use it, it gave me great faith in her athletically, because there was one point where she runs out of ammunition with a rifle, and I'm holding a blade down like this, and I'm supposed to swing around, and she's supposed to swing the butt of a rifle like a baseball bat, and I'm thinking, oh fuck, here we are with an actor. This is a broken hand. This is a broken freaking hand, man. And, you know, because I can hold steady, man, and I'm like, okay, here we go. 30 takes, she nailed that blade every single time.
Wow.
I mean, she's just such a good athlete and such a powerful person and so incredibly focused. So that gave me the faith to be able to do the other things that we did together, knowing that she was in complete control of her body.
Wow.
So good question, man. Horror convention people are hands down, the nicest people in the world. I've said this so many times, like, if the world were populated with all you guys, we wouldn't need military and we wouldn't need freaking cops. I'm glad we have cops. You know? So, you know, these are minor bumps in the road, you know, and it also, these times call for us to stand up, you know, and to make a difference in whatever way we can. You know, so it's a great question. It's in a, yeah.
We have Tawny in the back.
Come forward, Tawny.
I have not a Halloween question.
Okay.
What was it like playing a demon on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and what was that experience like?
Well, I use the same. Thank you. It's a good question. Because that character is very similar, you know, and it's born of the same place, and my process is exactly the same. So when they brought me in for an audition, all they wanted to see was me move. We had no discussion about, you know, the concept or the character. They just wanted to see the way I moved, and that's how I got cast. The place that I play that character from is the exact same place that, you know, that gave birth to my iteration of Michael Myers. So I think the similarities between those characters are really, really amazing. Now that character, I had to do it blind because the contacts they put in my eyes were so thick I couldn't see. So I had to memorize my steps. I had to memorize what I was doing. So I did everything blind in that movie. And then they brought in a stunt double for me because the stunt man the stunt coordinator didn't know me. And I thought he was an arrogant little prick anyhow, but he didn't know me, and he wasn't sure that I could fight, and so he brought in a double who was a great double for me in terms of size and build, and he was a former circus performer, so I thought, okay, this guy might be pretty good. So I worked with him to teach him how to move the way I move, because that character as well was moved like a cat. I designed my movement in that, organically designed it to move like a cat. But when the guy got in front of the camera and started fighting, he was fighting like a big man. He was fighting like a super heavyweight, and he was not very graceful, which really surprised me. So Sarah Marie Gellar was like, look, come on. And we talked about it, and I was like, this guy's, he's not doing it, man. And frankly, I don't want someone to think that's me, because that's not the way I move. And so she went to the director and said, no, this is not going to work. It truncated our fight because we didn't have the time. It's not like a movie where you can extend and extend and extend. So the fighting that you see on that is me. We just didn't get as much fighting as we would love to. And Sarah Marie Gellar, it's really interesting. Sarah Marie Gellar is very much like Jamie Lee Curtis. Like a powerful woman. I call Jamie the poster child for an empowered woman. I was raised by a strong woman, and my dad was man enough to let my mom be who she was, to be, a powerful woman. And my mom's been firebombed out of her lodgings in Belfast. She raised 7 boys, had 27 kids, foster children from the time they were born until they were adopted. She was a peace activist in Belfast for 25 years, so she's been in the mix of some really crazy stuff. That's Jamie. That's Sarah Marie Gellar. So, so the experience, although it wasn't in the duration that I got to experience with Halloween, was on so many levels just the same as making Halloween. It's a cool question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you want the microphone?
What are your thoughts or opinions about the sort of polarizing reaction to Halloween Ends? A lot of people loved it, and some people were disappointed, or something like that, or even his involvement in the whole movement.
So the question is, the controversy with Halloween Ends, and and commenting on that. First and foremost, making a film is very much like playing on a football team, and I played football. And when you play on a team, the only chance you're going to have of winning a championship, let alone winning it all, is buying into the coach's program. If you can't buy into the coach's program, just get out of the locker room, go find another team, because it starts from the top. So first I'll say, in Halloween Ends, as an athlete, I always wanted to be on the field, of course. As an actor, of course I want to be in every scene. I want as much time as I can get. It's so fulfilling. It's why I'm there. I'm not there to sit around and drink coffee. You know what I mean? I'm there to work. But David Gordon Green had a game plan. And David Gordon Green knew exactly what he was doing. And in fact, I will submit to you that in the future, Halloween Ends for the haters, and there's been a lot of them. And it's kind of interesting to me, like on Instagram, how people will send me or a DM and say, "I hated the movie, but you're really good." And I'm like, "Well, thanks for the update." But I think the thing is David Gordon Green knew what he was doing, and I think much like Halloween 3, it's going to become a cult classic. People are going to go deeper in it. They're going to see more and more and more of the beauty of it. And by the way, Rowan Campbell, my protege, who's now a very good friend of mine, is from here in Calgary. He's a local boy, tough kid too, man. We rocked and rolled in the tunnel. Someone gave me a concussion actually in the tunnel. So I think first of all, I feel grateful that we're making films that people care enough about to get passionate about, right? So have at it, man. And so when I get asked questions about, is he pure evil, or is he, is he that, or dude, that's for y'all to talk about. That's for you guys to hash out between yourselves, and the motivations for the character and the relationships. And I mean, it's just wonderful to be a part of a franchise, but more importantly for me, these 3 films that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride and Jamie Lee Curtis and the people that were involved, that we all got to be a part of. And so I'll bet you over the next 10 years the opinions are going to change somewhat. So.
And I can see that, because Halloween 3, when it first came out, when Halloween 3 came out, the majority of the audience disliked it. I remember seeing it for the first time, and I loved it. I loved the way the take was on it. I know Michael Myers himself was not in it, and it brought in something more. And I do see what you're saying when it comes to Halloween Ends, where it could possibly become, in 10 years, 15 years, a cult classic where people that once hate it love it, because Halloween 3, now you ask people, oh, I love that movie. I didn't like it when I first seen it. So I do agree with you.
Yeah. And David knew that. I mean, he often wore Season of the Witch T-shirts when we were shooting that. It wasn't subtle. We knew exactly what he was doing. But, and here's the funny thing is, like with each movie, because of course I have a really good attorney and I negotiate, he negotiates for me. The funny thing is, the more I worked on those movies, the less I worked on those movies, the more money I made. So, I guess maybe if I work one day on a movie, I'll buy everybody dinner. I don't know.
Modern Steakhouse.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they're closed tonight. What's up with that?
We're leaving Calgary. This place
I know,
sucks.
right? All right.
Your scene with Rowan was actually, there was a stunt that was cut from it, right? Where you picked him up over your head and slammed him down.
No,
Or he picked you up, sorry.
So we did 8 takes on that particular fight, and where he lifts me up and slams me down. On the take that they actually used, because your body, like you're fighting against your body's intelligence. So when like I've gone through a glass window, I've had multiple surgeries in my hand because I knew I was getting cut somewhere. I just didn't know where. But when you're a stuntman, or an actor, stunt person, you have to commit. And it's, dude, you're there, you're on the day because they know that you're gonna show up. Your coordinator, your director, your coach know that whatever's called for is what you're gonna do. They're gonna keep you safe. And so with that one, we wanted to get a really dramatic take. And so about the sixth take, I think. And it ended up being the one they used. When he went to throw me up, I just rolled out of it like I would as a martial artist. I just rolled out of it so that I could fight, and I was really pissed at myself because my body bailed out on me, and my body's consciousness. And so I yelled like, "Let's go again! Let's go again!" And so the AD goes, "James wants to go again." Boom, we go again, and I went to Rowan. I went, "Dude, jack me up as hard as you can, and slam me down as hard as you can." So I give him a lift. He had me straight above his head, like lifting me completely, my whole body up, and just slammed me. And I know what concussions feel like. It was a light one. You got the spike in the middle of your brain, the halo around you. Yeah, what are you gonna do? You keep going. And so, and David was like, "Yeah, we got it," and so we knew we did. But then they ended up using the rollout because it was too dramatic. You never know. You don't know until you put a film together. And I've sat in the editing bay with Tim Alverson and David. I spent a lot of time in there with those guys, and Tim is a brilliant editor. And it's really true. Like sometimes we look at 3 different scenes, or one scene cut 3 different ways that Tim would cut, and we sit and talk about it. Like, how is this going to affect the audience? How is this going to translate? What's the hook here? What's going to draw the audience in more deeply, or is it a yeah right moment? Yeah right, whatever. So yeah, it was. But that's the joy of filmmaking. Is constantly looking for the best way to give the audience, to give you guys what it is you're looking for.
I need a mic. James?
Yes, sir.
I'm so proud and so thankful that you're here. And everybody's so incredibly quiet, but we got to give this dude a shout out. Like, come on, people. And I'm not trying to steal the thunder of my friends here. I'm a clinical therapist, and I'm Adam. I'm the host of this show, as you know. But by trade, when you're talking about like the Thorazine shuffle of your patient, being in the psych, embodying the character of Michael Myers, what I have incredibly loved about just listening to you for 45 minutes is your grace and your gentleness. I would never think that one of my favorite horror icons, who's played in amazing films these last 3, would be a man who has been so generous and so loving with his fans. Just watching you as I've been going around the tables and hosting this weekend and been doing this show for 10 of the 11 years, I am incredibly blessed to have you here. I know we all are, and I am just thankful to know how attuned you are, and all of health, holistic, spiritual, all of the elements of who you are has really impacted me today as a fan, and I'm just love you, man. I'm so glad that you were here.
Oh, thank you, brother. I'll pay you later. Go.
Oh, hi.
What's up?
Oh, not much. So you talked about getting into the character and, deep dive. It sounds like you did a lot of work. You worked with Nick Castle in these 3 films, or was it just 2? Was it 2018?
Nick showed up in about 3 weeks in the first one.
Okay.
We've never ever talked about the character, not one word, and we're very close friends. We talk on the phone all the time. We travel together. When I'm in Los Angeles, we always have dinner. I mean, when we go to England later in the year to do a convention, we're going a week early to hang out and travel together. His wife and Sarah, my partner. He did one scene in 2018 where he's in the window. Laurie drives up, sees him. That same scene, I'm the guy in the mirror when the mirror shot out because the special effects coordinator was 2 feet behind me and a foot over the side. So they shot the projectile right past my head. Nick was not going to do that. Nick's not into that. I live for that stuff. So, and it was really great because we were hoping that we would get one scene where he could pass the torch to me. And it happened. We got to pass the torch. He was in that one scene. In Halloween Kills, he's not in anything. But Blumhouse Publicity, much to my chagrin, and I wasn't happy about it, told the LA Times and New York Times and everybody that Nick Castle was back as the Shape, and they didn't mention me. Now they had to give me credit because that's what my contract said. So Nick was really upset about that, super, super upset. But in Halloween Ends, Nick played a character. He played the Flasher. So he didn't do any Michael Myers stuff. And the thing about the character is that mask is molded to my face. That's why, I was stunt doubled. One guy did a stair fall in 2018, and stair falls, I've done them, they hurt. And it's really easy to wrench an arm or a leg or get concussed. So they couldn't afford to lose me, And in Halloween Kills, I was doubled on one snippet of a scene where the character jumps off the top of the SUV. They did one take, and the dude, he sprained his ankle. So on Halloween Ends, Aaron Armstrong, who was a coordinator in Kills, played the flashback character, was my stunt double on Halloween Ends. He only filled in for me on really long shots in the tunnel when we did some fight stuff. When he grabbed the knife out of the I grabbed the knife out of the stone, and when the refrigerator fell, and that was only because when I'm not wearing a mask in Halloween Ends, I was in makeup for 5 hours. So that, and if you go to my table and you see that one picture, which I really love, of me without the mask but with the prosthetic makeup on, it speaks, I love it so much because it speaks to the mastery, the pure genius of Christopher Nelson, the special effects makeup artist, right? Academy Award winning, Emmy Award winning. Everything that man does is insanely, he goes right to he's an incredible musician, he's an incredible painter, incredible sculptor. That guy, everything he does is so Nick, we just established this, just like mother from a brother, another brother, brother from another mother, friendship. Yeah, right. And that's who we are. And he's like a 10-year-old boy in a 75-year-old body. The dude is never gonna grow up, and it's awesome. It's just awesome. Problem we have when we get together is we drink a few too many bottles of wine. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, great guy though. If you haven't met him yet, guys, when you get the opportunity, please make it a point to meet him. And I know we only get a couple of minutes with you guys when you come up and sign an autograph or whatever, but there are those of us, myself, Nick, like Matt Lillard, Skeet Ulrich. There are those of us who consciously make the effort to look in your eyes and get to know you at least, to have a moment with you, because we love it as much as you guys do, and it's feeding to us because it's so much love. So you'll find Nick, if you haven't met him yet, is just the nicest freaking guy on the planet.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he really was. I met him at Hex when we had him here for Hex, and he actually took the time to come do a video with myself and my daughter. Just amazing.
Yeah, he's very, very generous, and and funny, guys. And his wife is even funnier, which is scary. Yeah, but she's put up with him, so you know. I mean, yeah. Another question? All right, big dog, you.
Do you think there will be another Halloween movie in the future at some point?
Do I think there'll be another Halloween movie in the future? Okay, son, I'm going to give you a lesson in economics. All right? If you made 3 movies and they grossed about $900 million, would you make another movie?
Yes.
Yeah. So would I. So I think what's going to happen here, I mean, you know, I actually know what's going to happen. So what I would say is, you know, the franchise is not going to die. But Malik Akkad is, you know, it's very sacred to him because, you know, Mustafa, his father, you know, was the beginning of this process. And I don't know if you guys know this, but most of you probably do, but Mustafa and Malik's sister were killed in a terrorist bombing on her wedding day in Lebanon. So this franchise means more to Malik than just dollars and cents. Which is why you'll never see a Michael versus Freddy or a Michael versus Jay. You will never see it. He will never denigrate this character. You also notice you never see someone who's played Michael Myers doing photo ops with a mask and a costume on. We don't do that because for us personally, that's like it's like a clown on a sideshow. And those of us who have played this character have the same respect for this character that Malik Akkad has for this character, that David Gordon Green has for this character. So you'll never see that happen. But as far as you're going, yeah, I think you need to go to Wharton School of Business, man. You may be the next billionaire up here in Canada.
There's a couple more hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. I know a lot, not all the time, but sometimes accidents happen on sets. We've seen that with Rust now. That's been a big controversy. Have you had any incidents where it was like, you're like, holy shit, I almost died?
Well, I mean, I've been burned by squibs, you know. Things are going to go sideways for sure. I'm lucky I've never broken a bone. I've gotten skated away with a few concussions and stitches and, you know, some joint stuff. But the thing is, I've handled firearms copious amounts of times. I've been in tons and tons of gunfights. The way that protocol works is the armorer brings you the weapon. If it's a revolver, he will drive a steel rod through each chamber. Thank you, and the barrel. Then he will show you each round and tell you if it's a quarter load, a half load, a 3/4 load. He will arm in front of you. He'll close it, and then if it's an automatic or semi-automatic, you know, something, he will show you the weapon. He will do the same thing with the rod. He'll show you it's clean. He'll show you it's cleared. He'll load each round in the clip in front of you, and then he'll slap it in. He'll chamber around for you unless you're going to chamber around in the scene. Then immediately when they yell cut, that armor and the first AD, the prop person and the armorer are all there for that process. As soon as they're done, they take the weapon away from you. They dechamber the rounds. They pop the clip out, and then they go through that whole process time and time and time again. It's ad nauseum. What happened on Rust was a profoundly unprepared and unqualified person was the armorer. She'd had no business being there. And the AD and the prop person, and there's a confluence of reasons why it happened. That kind of tragedy, whether it's Brandon Lee, whether it's Rust, whether it's, you know, these things are so avoidable. They're so avoidable. And it's really, really tragic because, you know, nobody gains from that. Everybody loses in that situation.
Yeah, like Midnight Rider was the other one where they were going to make Midnight Rider, and then they got a lot of the crew got hurt, or one person I think got killed on the train track because they weren't allowed to film there.
And that was on the director. And
yeah,
and that was just.
But I was just kind of curious if you had any severely close calls where you're like, oh God.
No, I've had the benefit of having always worked with really high professionals. And you'll find that 99.9% of the people, the movie business is really interesting. So, say on Halloween we had 130 people on the set. It's one of the few businesses where you can hire somebody and they come in and they know exactly what to do. Nobody has to be educated. Nobody has to be, everybody walks on the set and immediately knows what their job is. And it's like an anthill. It's all these people. My mother never understood why movies cost so much to make until she came down to Charleston and watched me make 2018. When she saw all these people with all these different jobs, and as soon as they yell, roll tape, everybody just stops and freezes. And then as soon as you hear cut, everybody, boom, they're back to work again. And it's just, 100 and some odd people on set doing everything they do. It's sad that it's an issue I have with corporate America, that they're always trying to save money, and many times Blumhouse is, is one of these people. They'll trip over dollars to save pennies. But where they never did, and Ryan Turek is the exec in charge of these Halloween films, and he's a wonderful guy. He's a good friend of mine. He will absolutely stand his ground when it comes to making sure that we're safe, making sure that people are professional. I mean, he's a pro, and he respects all the rest of us and treats us like pros. So one of the joys of making that film was definitely working with Ryan Turek. So.
We're out of time.
Guys, I think we're out of time. So
This sucks. I was having so much fun.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you.
Yes.